Alright, you guys, you already know what time it is. Welcome back to another TBG Tribal Gaming feature, and I am your host, Nello. And while on that first one, I totally missed it from Pia Club, on that second round, I did not miss out, and I jumped on this one right here. The Jessie from the Acid Rain world, and this one's for the Civet Company G2 agent. Now, this is a badass figure, but it is held back by a few issues. But let's go ahead and break it down for you to see if it's something that's going to be a deal breaker for you, alright? Let's get it. Alright, you guys, and here we have the Civet Company G2 agent Jessie. Now, this is the runner-up to what has so far been my favorite figure of the Acid Rain line, which is the Civet Company Aegis Sentinel. Now, obviously, those are still my favorite, and this would have been my favorite, but this is held back by a fair amount of, I don't even want to say they're QC issues, more so engineering issues from Acid Rain. But I'm going to tell you right now, before I get into that, this is without a doubt a badass looking figure. If you look at what you see on the box art and then what you obviously get in person, this is really dope. It matches very well. Both aesthetics look very, very first of all, very real. And on top of that, this also looks just very accurate to the box art and then the box art to the figure. This looks like it translated very well. And it's a little sad that we have a couple of reoccurring issues that we've seen in other molds. And I hope that Acid Rain does pay attention to either customer complaints or even watches a review like this and sees where they could benefit from a couple of differences. Now, before I go fully into the review, I just want to give a little bit of a rant on my own part. That's more of a subjective thing than an objective thing, but I just wanted to get it out of the way. This is known as the Acid Rain universe, and with that said, there has to be a lot of environmental problems, a lot of reasons to kind of be equipped from top to bottom, and I understand that the Civet Company seems to be a little bit more of an urban warfare type of group, militant group, but we see it even in the box art that they're obviously in some pretty rough terrain. And while I love this aesthetic, this is like the most Appleseed anime female character look that they've ever done. I can't help but to disagree with their choice of giving her shorts, which leaves her exposed to the elements and all kinds of other battle damage, and the fact that they gave her these Nikes. I think it's a clean look, and again, we suffer from this problem where Acid Rain has given us a lot of these figures, but we don't have any real background on them. So, maybe if she's doing a lot of urban warfare, this might make a lot of sense, right? She's, agent, kind of like espionage, so I understand that maybe she'll be around more regular citizens, but I do believe that the green that we see on the pants should have been brought all the way down to the ankles, and then the feet themselves should have been painted, the same kind of black and yellow as the Civet Company colors, as the helmet, because she is supposed to be more of a, she's still more of a warrior than anything else. And I don't understand necessarily the aesthetic here. Maybe they need to give us a comic book. Maybe they need to give us something that, explains why she's in this form. But in other releases, hopefully, if you actually look at what was posted online, Jessie does come. She doesn't come with, but they show basically another set of pants that go all the way down to look more military. I like that look better, but I'm pretty sure that what they were showing was just the modularness between using other Acid Rain figures, and you could add those pants onto her. I don't want that. I want to have a separate set of pants that I can put onto her so that I don't have to sacrifice another figure in my display just so she can have pants and look the way that she probably should have from the factory. All right, so let me go ahead and just break down a lot of the caveats. This is a phenomenal figure held back by some technical issues, but we'll get into that as we move forward. All right, so as per usual, I'm going to give you guys a fast breakdown of everything so you guys can get a good idea of the entire figure, and then I'll top it off at the end with some of the QC problems and hopefully what Acid Rain can do differently. But here we have the front of the box art, and as per usual, Acid Rain does not disappoint. Beautiful looking artwork. This looks exactly like what the figure actually looks like in hand, and we get a beautiful Aegis Sentinel in the background. So again, they use a good amount of artwork here referring to other figures that we've gotten, and it's pretty cool. Now here we have the side of the box, just basically says Jessie and the Civet Company G2 agent with the insignia. Really badass. I'm actually pretty happy that it's not the G2 agent. They literally put Jessie on there since this is a unique character. On the back, we do get everything that the figure comes with, and she is fairly content heavy, and she also comes obviously with swappable heads, as it's not a helmet that could just slide on since the hair is obviously plastic. Though I imagine in real life it wouldn't be like that, right? But pretty cool stuff, legalese, warnings, beautiful shot overall. And then on the barcode side, we have some fairly standard stuff, the stuff that we always see. And like I said, I don't understand what the barcode is for, but again, maybe for inventory. Now, all acid rain stuff come in containers like the one you see in front of you, but from as far as I can remember, it's been either a long time since we got in a red color like this, or this one specifically is one that they painted this color or molded this color specifically for Jessie, and I have to admit, it's pretty stunning when you're pulling it out. It does have a fair amount of pizzazz to it, uniqueness, almost specialness to it, and I think that it definitely helps the vibe of the figure overall. Now, for the contents of the box, it does come with a belt and 2 grenades that I've already attached, 2 pistols, a knife, and an SMG, plus the actual Jessie head. Now, I am going to tell you this. There's a little bit of a problem with the heads, and it actually comes with the Jessie head already on it, with the Civet company head on the side, the helmeted one. And I'll get into that a little bit later, but for now, I'm displaying it the opposite way, with the head on. Alright, so when it comes to Jessie herself, she does have the same beautiful paint that we always see on all of these characters from the Acid Rain line. Clean paintwork throughout, then put with this wash on top of it that gives it that granulated feel on everything from the bra that she's wearing, the shorts, the holsters, the jacket itself, the helmet especially, the gloves, and obviously because, you know, there's a lot of toxins, a lot of reasons to be dirty in this world. You actually see that wash through the skin as well, which again is the reason why I say I don't understand the reason for her wearing shorts and Nikes, but I think it is something that is pretty cool that we always see throughout the figures, and it's always really nice to see them not skimp on that. It's part of the reason why we love it. So I'm going to give you guys a full 360. Here is the front shot of Jessie. There is the right side, and as you can tell, she has a beautiful natural at attention pose, and she has a lot of articulation that allows her to really put a lot of personality into that. Now, here she is from the rear, and as you can tell, again, a beautiful shot. You get to see a lot of what I was mentioning in those joints, kind of that black wash that they put on it. And then on the back, it actually says NOS, but it's been, obviously, because of acid rain and all that kind of stuff, it's dirtied up. And I like that. It, again, goes good with the aesthetic. But I'm pretty sure you guys are starting to tell some of that quality issue that I was referring to. And again, this is something that I hope that acid rain will be able to fix, but we'll get there soon, I promise. And then the side pose and mirrors the exact other side, and there is no real difference here. Alright you guys, so let me give you guys a breakdown on what Jessie comes with. So for starters, we do get a belt that is very pretty well done for the most part. It's basically all the way black plastic, but again, you do get that sort of wash on it that gives it a nice color. And then you do see a little bit of that yellow from the Civet company. And then right there, you'll see 2 of the grenades. And they're, again, just more of a plastic, but even these have a slight wash on them. And it's a pretty nice belt overall, a bunch of pouches. And then right there is the money shot for me. This right here, hold on, there you go. This right here is the knife holder. Now, a lot of these figures come with knives, and only a few set of them usually have somewhere to store them. And I like that here with the Jessie figure, we get that on her. So every single thing I'm about to show you fits onto the Jessie buck, for the exception of the obvious Jessie head. All right, so here we have that aforementioned knife, and as you can tell, it's just black all the way around. We've seen this version before, and sometimes it comes with a gray or silver finish on the blade itself, but here it's really just an all kind of a flat, almost shiny black to it, but that really might just be more the light that's picking up. But it is nice. She holds it perfectly fine, and it fits into the sheath really nice. Next, we do see the pistol that she comes with, and it's basically the, Colt 1911 of the Acid Rain. Everybody has it. It must be the most reliable one, and it always looks pretty good. She holds it well in both hands, and it looks just like any other one. Just a flat black plastic that it came molded in, and she does come with 2 of these, and she does have 2 holsters on her, which again means she can have them both on the figure at the same time, tucked away. Alright, and now here we have the SMG, and again, we've seen this one plenty of times before, and for the most part, these never really come painted any differently. Just a flat black all the way through, and it looks nice. She holds it perfectly fine in both hands, and she looks pretty good doing so. All right, and then here we actually get the Jessie head sculpt, and I have to say it would be between this and the Selene Raider as to which one is the most realistic looking. I have to admit that for me, this is, I mean, look at it. The eyes, the nose, the sculpt, the lips themselves. This looks not only just like the box artwork that we see, but even more importantly, hold on, let me see if I can get it to focus a little better. There we go. And as you can tell, dude, it has a lot to it. Yes, I get that it's a bit of a flat expression, but at the same time, it does look a bit serious, and it just looks surprisingly realistic. This has to be one of their best ones. It's really between, again, this one and the Selene Raider. And the red of the hair looks really nice all the way through, and it's been sculpted. And then at first I thought that little bit of yellow was maybe paint chip, but I think that's supposed to be there. And then she has the black bands on either side. But for the most part, you know, if that's not supposed to be there, maybe I'll have to paint it over myself. But it's a seriously good looking head sculpt, one of the best from Acid Rain thus far. Now, when it comes to articulation, Jessie is not hampered by all the same stuff that we see on other figures. As you can tell, she's wearing basically no real armor other than the helmet. So she never really falters from lack of articulation other than in the same places that we usually see with this buck, which is the shoulders. But other than that, everything else has a surprisingly wide variety of movement. So let me go ahead and show you guys what that all looks like. So her head can tilt this far up, which as you can tell is pretty good. This is awesome. She's obviously looking up, and in this scenario I am using a little bit of the abs. It's kind of hard not to with this figure. A lot of the other figures seem to have a more solid core, so this one you move the head back and everything moves back with it a little bit, but that's just to show you the great amount of range that she has with the whole sculpt being freed up. She then also looks fairly far down. This is definitely more than the Selene Raider in both directions. You can definitely get some personality whether she's walking somberly away or looking up towards the stars. It is definitely a more dynamic. Now the figure's head does rotate 360. And the Jessie head has basically the same articulation as the helmeted head. There's really not too much of a hindrance with the helmet other than a little bit at the collars. But for the most part, you're going to get the same thing even without the helmet using the regular Jessie head. Now both shoulders do come out, but remember it is on a ball hinge, so we don't quite get a T-pose. Alright you guys, so this is why I do these reviews, so that I can find stuff out as I'm reviewing it. I'm actually noticing that this doesn't have the same ball joints on the shoulders that they normally do. This is more of a ball hinge, a little bit more to what they used to have on their older bucks, and what we see a lot of like Joy Toy stuff have. And it's actually done fairly well. This is higher than I think most figures that we've had so far, and the shoulder pieces are obviously kind of disconnected, and that's to give us that extra articulation, and I actually don't mind that. When it comes to the aesthetic, you know, I'm willing to deal with that look where we can kind of see her shoulder slash, you know, her underarm basically in the shot. Now the shoulders do rotate a full 360, so there's absolutely no hindrance there. So it's going to be a little hard for me to actually show you each individual joint, but as you can tell in the arm piece, we do have basically 3 pieces that are all interconnected. The bottom of what would be the top of the bicep, right there, and then the joint in the middle, and then the forearm joint. I'm going to tell you right now, all 3 of them swivel, so I'm not quite sure how it all comes together in terms of the articulation, but let me go ahead and just show you what I mean so you guys can see what she can do. So that right there was achieved literally by just twisting their forearm. Everything else is still in place. And then since it is a double slash triple slash just an all-around incredible joint that's holding it together, she does get noticeably past 90 degrees, though it is stopped just shy of, you know, its maximum amount due to that sculpt at the top. Now the right hand has that cowboy joint that we've been seeing lately, and it allows her to swivel the gun up and down, which is pretty nice. But on the other hand, we have more of that push-up pose that allows it to go kind of out and in, which you can tell right there. Now there is a cut right below the bra, and it does allow her to move forward and back and all the way around. So as you can tell, and forward and back is not too much, but it does give her a lot of personality. And then she obviously has the cut. It's not even a cut, it's a ball. It's a T-joint that's basically connecting the torso to both legs with the crotch piece. Now this allows for movement incredibly far back, and just a phenomenal amount forward. Her feet are still pointed straight down. This is all ab work that allows her to go that far forward and that far back. Now, I removed the belt so that you guys can see this portion a little bit better, but even without the belt, you guys saw that when I had her bent backwards. You can see everything basically through the bottom of the torso. There is a lot of gappage here, and I don't want to get too deep in it because I'm going to explain it more in a second, because right now we're going through articulation, but it's really hard for me to even hide it right now, you guys. You guys can see right through it, and right below it you can see the T-joint on the bottom. That's really more of a Y joint that's holding everything together, and there is just an insane amount of gappage that right now is not too bad, but if I split it, yeah, you guys can see how uneven and almost bow-legged it looks. But let me go ahead and finish articulation for you guys. So as you guys can see, that extra articulation that you do get from all that gappage does allow her to get, I think, the furthest splits short of the capybara red that we got, that figure that came with it. It's almost identical here, and we see just a lot of just range here in the hips. Now, she can also do the splits forward and back, so again, you do get a lot here in terms of articulation around the hips. Yes, there's a lot of gappage, but yes, you also do get, as you can tell, a lot of articulation. Now, at the top of the thigh, you do get a cut, which allows you to basically do a full 360. And now that cut is above and below. I'm not quite sure which one is the one that's pegged in. I don't want to pull it apart. But something that's really cool is that if I turn this back around, you can actually move the pistol itself towards the front if you wanted to. So as you can tell, you still have the legs straightened as it normally is, but now you've moved the holster to the front. And while you don't really need to worry about that on this side, on the other side right here, you definitely do. The positioning of the blade holster in the back does get in the way, so moving this towards the front does allow for more aesthetically pleasing and how it fits together a lot better. So this is a double jointed knee design, and as you can tell, you do get all the way to the top. She kicks her own ass. Now, I wouldn't say it looks the best, and it's not necessarily anatomically correct, but it does get you pretty far in terms of articulation, and the other side mirrors the exact same way. And then here at the ankles, we do get a full 360 all the way around, and then it goes down about that far, and then kicks up about that far. So really more than you'll really ever need. All right, so as you guys can tell, this figure is very dynamic when it comes to the posing. And this is really the biggest benefit when they give us a character that is literally wearing no body armor. There's no chest armor to hinder the torso. There's no, thicker, more tightly put together body that allows for less articulation overall. And so we do end up getting, like I said, this dynamic figure that allows us dynamic posing like this one, or even something more like this, and really that's where a lot of the benefit of this figure comes from. So, before I get into a deeper comparison, let me go ahead and say that if you are looking for one of the most articulated figures out of the Acid Rain line that has a lot of fluid movement, you can get into a lot of cool poses, especially if you're doing photography. This is going to be one of the ones that you can really milk just some really nice poses out of. I think this is going to be something you're going to love. And when it comes to just the design of the figure, like the way it looks, I think it's an awesome design. Even if I don't necessarily agree with the bare legs and the Nike shoes, I think it's still a dope looking figure. Very anime inspired, and with the ability to, again, be modular, you could always throw another set of pants on it to give it more of a military look. But I do hope that Acid Rain gives us something like that in the future, so that we don't have to sacrifice another figure. Now, this figure is far from perfect, and to be honest, the hips are going to be a make it or break it for you. And let me highlight what Acid Rain can do different by giving you guys the comparison that I don't think you guys were expecting. So let me go ahead and show you. All right, you guys. So to begin, we have Jessie on the left, and we're going to bring quite a few comparisons for the right side. All right, so for starters, we have the AMM Prospector, and I'm just going to go ahead and say it. You can tell right off the bat it is a very solid-looking figure. From the stance, from the joints, from the pelvic area, it's very tight. This was the very first buck that Acid Rain came out with for its first female character, which was the AMM Prospector, and we ended up seeing it used on Sophie and the EOS Raider before we started seeing some of the new stuff like the Celine Raider and obviously this Jessie figure right here. But let me go ahead and give you guys a full 360. So this is from the front. Then we have the right side. We have the rear side, and as you can tell again, Wahila's gappage on the Prospector. The left side, and as you can tell, they both have pretty good neutral stances. And then obviously back to the front. So as you can tell, they're both solid looking figures overall, but the Prospector just brings it up a whole nother level when it comes to just the sturdiness in hand. As you can tell, there's a lot less gappage in between the thighs, and it honestly makes it feel a lot more sturdier in hand. The Jessie figure, because of the way it's built and made, it's honestly very flimsy feeling in your hand, which kind of sucks. Think if you compare the fact that I was able to get this Prospector for around 20 bucks and this Jessie figure cost me about 40 something. So at double the price, I don't necessarily feel I'm getting double the figure. The AM Prospector is just a lot more well put together, but I'm going to get to some poses, but let me get through a few more figures. Next, we have the rider of the red capybara. And as you can tell, they're, it might be a little hard to see, but they're basically an identical buck. I think the real only difference is the sculpting in the breast area, where Jessie's wearing just a bra, and over here on the right side, the capybara is wearing like a full yellow shirt. But it looks to me in hand that the red capybara rider is actually a little bit more solid, only because even though it shares the exact same buck and the exact same floating crotch issue where you can see literally right through it and it just does not connect, it has the same level of flimsiness, but it's just the slightest bit less, because I don't know if you guys can tell, but the jacket that it's wearing is actually closed at the bottom, so it holds the entire torso piece together a bit more smoothly, while with the Jessie figure, when I'm playing with it, it tends to kind of move not in unison sometimes, and it ends up leaving it a little bit more wonky as I'm trying to line it up. While with the red capybara rider, I can usually get it more set up a bit more quickly. But here they are from the front. Side shot, and I think you're starting to notice a little bit more what I mean. From the rear, and here's where you can really tell that they have the exact same issue. Both of the left legs, no matter what I do, seem to always kind of stick out a little bit more like that, and that's where you can really see the gappage. Here is the other side shot. Still good neutral poses, but I seem to be able to get the red capybara rider in a more neutral up-down pose, only because, and I failed to mention this on the Prospector, but only because she seems to be wearing slightly bigger boots than the Jessie figure, which allows her to get a little bit of an extra, just a better stance overall, just more stability. So overall, I think the red capybara rider is just the slightest bit more of a stable figure overall. And again, aesthetically makes more sense. Of course, she'd be wearing, you know, pants all the way down. And it's something that I still wish we would have gotten with our Jessie character. But as you can tell, it does look pretty good when it's one color all the way down. So I'm still thinking about potentially color matching the green on the shorts, if not just doing a full repaint on the waist down to the feet. Because like I said, I feel like it looks a little bit tighter overall with the red capybara rider over the Jessie. And now for last week's comparison, we have here the Celine Raider. And now just take a look at that. Again, what a solid looking piece, and it feels solid in your hand. Everything fits perfectly fine, zero gappage, and there's just a certain solidity to this figure that you have to take precedent here over this Jessie to know that it is the superior product overall. And while I hate to say that, because the Celine Raider is supposed to be less of a common character, right? It's just honestly the better put together one. And when you feel them both in your hand, it just feels like the Jessie is, and the same thing kind of with the red capybara rider, it just feels like a more unfinished product. It feels more flimsy. It doesn't feel as well put together. It feels like they shortened it a little bit, but for the most part, the Jessie's not a bad figure, but I'm just giving you guys this comparison. These two, for the money, I think are the obviously better choices. They're more better built. They're more solidly put together. There's less gappage overall. And for the most part, I think that while they both have less articulation overall than the red capybara rider and the Jessie figure, ultimately they're the better put together figures, and they just feel more quality in your hand. That's not to say that there aren't the benefits to the other two, right? So let me go ahead and put them on. These two figures right here by all means have better articulation. They get further in their T poses. As you can tell, they get almost all the way to the top. I could probably push it a little more, but I'd rather not stress out the plastic. That right there is maxed out on both of them. I can't get them to do a higher T than that. Now for the AMM Prospector, that's as far as I can get for a splits. Then with the Selene Raider, I can get her all the way down to a splits. So that's something where you're going to see a bit of an update with obviously some of the articulation, with the AMM Prospector being a little bit of a tighter complex overall in the structure. You can't get as much of as much movement as you will in the hips in that direction, but they can both do basically a fairly good front to back split. I'm still willing to say that the Selene Raider has just the slightest bit more, but overall they do it more than you'll probably ever need them to do. Both the Capybara and the Jessie both get way deep into the splits with absolutely no problem, no hindrance, so it was nice and quick. And then obviously they have phenomenal front to back. So, I mean, it's with the extra clearance that they have from the larger waists. Obviously that is something that makes it have a better form factor when it comes to articulation, but not a better form factor when it comes to the actual aesthetics of how it looks. So here's the honest truth about it all. I understand that we gain articulation with the form factor that they're using currently with things like the Red Capybara Rider and the current Jessie, right? But I think that when it comes down to it, you can fulfill that level of articulation fairly well with the legs that we've seen before from the, Selene Raider, and we can still fulfill most of it with what they did with the Prospector. Now, as you saw with the Prospector, you don't get much of a Y stance, but you can still get her into a good battle stance regardless, and you can still put her into a crouching tiger type thing, what I would call a more martial arts stance. And while it's not going to be nearly as deep as the Selene Raider or the Jessie, it's still pretty good. And to be honest, I'd be willing to sacrifice some of that articulation just to not have this really unfinished look that we see here with both of these. I mean, look at that. There's literally a peg look coming out in between their thighs. It's a really odd look and it's not very attractive and it feels too flimsy. So there's a couple of things that Acid Rain can go about to try to fix this. And number one is they can go back to doing what the Prospector did and tighten it all up, so make the Y joint in the middle smaller, and then not do a floating crotch piece, but instead connect the crotch piece to the Y joint. That would firm everything up and make it look a lot more aesthetically pleasing. But if they want to keep the wide hips, then they need to still connect the crotch joint to the floating crotch piece to the Y joint, but they need to make the crotch piece thicker. Maybe bring it in more because there's a bit of clearance there that I don't feel needs to be there. It comes down kind of low. Tighten it up. Make it wider instead. It'll cover it completely and not give it this wide gap. And then of course connecting it to the joint itself would make it nice and tight. At the end of the day, you're going to keep that entire piece together. You're only going to switch out the top of the Jessie for another set of legs. Now, let me tell you something. I did mention this before that it was shown that we would get, obviously these are very modular, but that we would get another set of legs. I hope that in a future assault pack case that we get, that Acid Rain just gives us another set of legs, because I don't want to have to sacrifice anything from my display in order to give her the legs that she should have had. But let me show you what she would look like, and I think this is going to drive the point home for you. Look how much more complete this looks. Doesn't this look like the figure that we should have gotten out of the box and not the one that we should be hoping for? This looks like exactly what I would imagine being next to the Aegis Sentinels, right? An actual agent slash commander slash leader. I mean, this looks badass to me. Look how much tighter the joints look. Look how much more of a complete figure it looks. In hand, this feels a lot better. And this is exactly what I'm saying that they showed on the back of some of the promotional images, that we'd be getting a set of legs like this. Now, I wasn't able to get the torso off of the body that I pulled this from, so I had to only split the top part. Obviously, we would probably still get, the belly that comes with Jessie, but at least from the torso down, look how much more like a soldier this looks like. And now I'm hoping that we do get a version of this that also has the gun holsters on the side of it as well, because I think it's a dope look. But could you imagine if I were to take this and repaint those legs to look more like, the civet colored armor, with the yellow and the dark grays, just like the jacket and the helmet. I mean, look at that. That looks really fucking dope. Again, that looks like a commander to me. So I hope that this portion right here really highlighted how much better this figure would come if it came with legs like that, with the option of still having these ones on the side for, whatever you want. But I just really think that it looks a little too wonky, and until Acid Rain pulls their shit together and is able to really tighten up that model to not look so wonky, I think that we should continue getting the style of legs that I currently have on the Jessie as we see it. All right, so now you guys know the full truth about Jessie and some of the things that we can hopefully still get in the future to fix some of these obvious issues. But moving forward, now that I've showed you guys a comparison with all the other female characters, let me throw in a couple of the male Acid Rain characters and obviously some other things to boot. Alright, so there she is next to the Civet Sentinel, and as you can tell, she is shorter as she's supposed to be, and overall she looks a lot tinier compared to the Sentinel, only because obviously he's wearing that exoskeleton and it gives him a lot more presence, a lot more size, but it matches up pretty well. The yellows, the blacks, the motif, it looks like it's supposed to be obviously part of the same team here, and I like that. I like the Civet look, and I hope that they continue giving us more stuff to build off of this army. And then there we have one of the sand engineers, and as you can tell, again, male character, a little taller, a little bigger, not so much of the same size as the Civet on the left, but still obviously some size on her, and for the most part it does look pretty good. And as you can tell, right, they both have holsters, but she has more of those integrated holsters into the hips, while he has those added pieces on top of hips that are there that make him look that much bigger. Alright, so here we have her next to the Mandalorian from the SH Figure Arts, and as you can tell, no comparison here. And now to the right, we do have the brand new DBZ SH Figure Arts Jace, and as you can tell, he actually is a little smaller, and maybe you could pass off Jessie as a child, but other than that, these are wildly out of scale. But let me give you guys just a little bit more of a view of the whole piece. Yeah, so as you can tell, a lot smaller. These obviously don't scale at all, but I do it for fun. Now here we have the Revoltech Deku, and as you can tell, still towers even though he is one of my smaller figures. And now to the right we have the Figma Levi, which, I'm sorry, I don't know why I can't seem to get a good... For some reason I can't get it to focus as well, but you can tell. It's about the same size as the Deku and just wildly unproportionate. He looks like a Titan compared to her. Alright, so now you guys get the full picture on what the Jessie comes with and whether or not it's something that you guys are going to want to go ahead and purchase or not. Might be a deal breaker for you, might not. These are very modular figures and there's a lot that you can do with them, especially moving forward. And we do know that Acid Rain likes to add a few things here and there to kind of make a figure even that much more modular, right? To come out with different faces, different helmets, sometimes even a different body. So we'll see what they do to answer for this Jessie, as they did show on some of the prototype figures that there would be another set of legs that could be put onto it, all right? But until then, if you like this, please comment below, like and subscribe. Let me know if there's anything else I can do to cater these videos more to your liking. And as per usual, this was the TBG Trial by Gaming feature, and I am your host, Nello. Deuces.